Iraqi militia say there will be an appropriate response if all U.S. troops don't leave. Any idea on what that appropriate response will be?
Um, no, but I would guess, more rocket attacks and stuff on U.S. bases. So the U.S. and Iraq, and recently announced that the U.S. was going to end its combat mission in Iraq and withdraw. Well, actually, they didn't even say that they would withdraw combat troops, but the idea is they're going to switch their role from a combat one to an advisory role, even though it already kind of was an advisory support role as the way it was. But there's about 2,500 U.S. troops in Iraq. It's not clear how many, if any, will be pulled out under this plan. When it was announced, there's like all these reports, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, of U.S. officials saying there's not going to be a significant change in the number of troops. So this is a spokesman for Kateb Sayed al-Shuhada. They're a militia under the Popular Mobilization Forces, the PMF, which is kind of an umbrella group of mostly Shia militias that formed in 2014 to fight ISIS. But the U.S. has kind of been waging this small-scale war against them, I guess, since the end of 2019. We've been bombing them. We assassinated their leader alongside General Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general that the Trump administration killed in January 2020. So they have plenty of reason to not want the U.S. in their country. And after Soleimani and al-Muhandis, who was the PMF leader, were killed, Iraq's parliament voted unanimously to expel the U.S. So it's obvious that to some elements in Iran's government, not just the Shia militias, but also the government, this plan to just change roles is not going to be acceptable to them. And this group, actually, the Kateb Sayed al-Shuhada, if I'm saying that right, the Biden administration has specifically targeted them with airstrikes back in February when Biden bombed Syria. They targeted them and Kateb Hezbollah, blaming them for rocket attacks on the Erbil base with no evidence. There's a million people in Iraq that would probably want to fire rockets at the U.S.
Probably
They
more
always
than a
blame it on the
million.
Shia groups. Yeah. There's a million reasons why. This is the same MO as the Trump administration. Just blame it on the Shia militias, bomb them, and start a little escalation, which led to the U.S. almost going to war with Iran. So it's really just reckless and pointless, the U.S. presence there. It's just a tripwire. And part of the reason why that Biden will not pull troops out of there is because they support the bases in Iraq support the U.S. occupation in northeast Syria, which they don't want to give that up.
Right.
Yeah, it just seems like it's going to be more of the same in Iraq. When they first announced this change, there was some other Shia, there's all different. They're not a monolith, the Shia militias or the Shia clerics or the Shia politicians in Iraq. Some of them welcomed it and said, yeah, they can stay and help us fight ISIS, but no combat troops. So for some of them, it might be good, but for a lot, it won't be acceptable. And then there's also groups like ISIS that have a reason to kind of provoke a war between the Shia and the U.S. So yeah.